Heavy weekend rain was more of a reprieve than a full-on blessing for tourism interests in Negril, who've been at the mercy of a punishing drought since about December last year. On Monday, the tourism stakeholders revealed that since March this year, they've spent more than $200 million to buy water from trucks to fill their tanks so they can deliver the experience promised to the visitors who've paid them. Today on Lead Story, I talk solutions with the opposition spokesperson on tourism, the Chamber of Commerce, Negril Chamber of Commerce President, and of course, the Member of Parliament for Western Westmoreland. That's my agenda on Lead Story this evening. Come on for the ride. Lead story this evening concerns the water issues in Western Jamaica, Negril to be precise, the tourism resort town, where since about December last year, a drought has really done a number on hoteliers who are down there. The water running low, some guests complaining. In some isolated cases we hear of people cancelling their bookings, going elsewhere because they say it's really untenable to pay for a vacation experience and having to wake up in the morning and not being able to shower or doing their morning ablutions. It's untenable, and that's why the stakeholders have united to call on the government for immediate action. Evelyn Smith, former president of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, will join me, along with Senator Janice Allen. She's the opposition spokesperson on tourism, and Roland Wilson. He is the MP for Western Westmoreland. We were supposed to have the Chamber of Commerce represented, but that fell through at the last minute. I'm going to start with Senator Allen and Evelyn Smith. Later on in the show, we'll go to Roland Wilson. I say good evening, ladies. Welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening, and thank you so much for bringing this further to the public's attention.
Senator Allen, are you hearing us?
Good evening to you, George, and your viewers, and good to see you, Evelyn.
Hi, Senator. How are you?
I'm good. It's important matter for Negril.
All right, let's get cracking. Let's get cracking. Ms. Smith, the situation in Negril is very, very serious. I asked one experienced player in tourism earlier today if this has been the worst she's seen it. She says, well, George, in 26 years, it's never been this bad. Is she exaggerating, or is it that bad?
Not at all. She is not exaggerating, very much so. I've been in Negril now since 1988, actually. And this is absolutely the worst it has been. We have a situation where we're all aware of climate change, but we've also identified for the last 20 years, successive governments have pointed out that there are drought challenges. Logwood is not capable of producing the water for the Negril resort area as it has grown, both in terms of its commercial businesses, hotels, as well as the accompanying residential population, because Logwood has always served a very wide area. So this problem has been identified. I know you pointed out the drought and, from last year, but this has been going on now for 20 years, but this is the worst it has been.
I heard the NWC management say that, look, there are short-term measures that are being implemented, and they also point to, in 2022, a $475 million project which brought water from Whitehall to the vulnerable parts of Negril. That $475 million project, only 2 years ago, has that not made an impact in the community, in the resort community?
Well, let me answer it this way. The survey that we did, which had a very strong response, 561 persons who are workers within the tourism sector. And, when these surveys go out, there was in the other category were even people who categorize themselves as working in the tax office, working in banks, working as farmers in the area. So 561 persons, the majority of whom are in Westmoreland and indicate that they work in Negril, indicate that they are still without water for weeks at a time. And a good amount of them also indicated that it's been months that they're without water. So I guess the NWC would really have to tell you exactly which clear area that particular upgrade went to. What we do know as hoteliers is that the logwood treatment plant is insufficient, and there was a plan from 2003. I think it was first mooted by former Prime Minister Patterson back in 2003 to start the upgrade for the network that would bring water down into this part of the island. We have heard of changes and upgrades and continuation of the progress through Minister Pickersgill. We've heard Minister Chang. We've heard Minister Carl Samuda. And, you know, we're now at Minister Matthew Samuda also telling us much of the same thing again.
Yes. Yes. Senator Ali, let me bring you in here because Evelyn Smith has charted the number of ministers that this has been the proverbial recurring decimal under. How do we crack the code? How do we bring the water that is required into Negril so we don't have the catastrophe that, well, not catastrophe, that's overplaying it, but we don't have this serious situation that we have on our hands now? What is the legislative or governmental prescription?
You know, I didn't hear a part of your question, but I'm going to assume what you have said by just, first of all, acknowledging what Evelyn said before. The fact is, this is not a new issue, and the solution is not unknown. The question is the will to do what needs to be done with the urgency that is required. At this point in time, there's no question the impact that has been had on Negril in its widest sense, from hoteliers, small and large, in various quarters, to residents, the workers in the industry, those who work and support various other areas in the industry. The fact is, we're at a point where it is a crisis. You may not want to use the word catastrophe, but I will say it's a crisis. And I expect that with a crisis, as we have done with other projects, namely the Montego Bay bypass, the perimeter road, we have made it into a national project. Why can't we make Negril water supply issue a national project when it is that it is impacting an industry that contributes so significantly to our economy?
Well, Senator Allen, I'm happy you went there. I'm happy you went there about national project because I noted that mention in the statement that you sent earlier this afternoon. So explain to the viewers, if it is that providing the water supply to Negril that is required is treated as a national project, how does that influence the procurement process differently from the procurement process being engaged now?
Well, that was laid out quite clearly by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance in Parliament with regard to the perimeter, the Mobile Perimeter Road, in that there's a fast tracking of the procedures in order to ensure that a national project that has major implications on our infrastructure and our economy is treated in a way that gives it priority. The reality, George and your viewers, I am of the view that this is something that must be championed by the leadership of tourism, namely the Minister of Tourism, because at the end of the day, the industry players who pointed out yesterday at the press conference the concerns that they're having, it is not new. And we expect that the minister is going to be lobbying his colleagues and the Prime Minister and all of the parties involved to ensure that we get the sort of response that is needed. Because as Evelyn said, this is something that has been going on and the solutions have been identified so long now.
I want to read something to you before we go to the break, because you used you described in strong terms the absence of the minister. You've said that the minister is away at a trade show. He's attending a trade show to attract new investors, and that in the time of this greatest crisis facing the industry since COVID, the minister is nowhere to be found. And you said that the minister is basically missing in action and has dropped hands on this issue. Is that a fair assessment, Senator Allen?
That is an assessment that I'm comfortable making. The reality is that you cannot continue to try to expand the industry if there are infrastructural issues. It makes no sense. It's foolhardy. And I expect that as we are growing, and we knew where the growth was going, that is why it was pointed out in 2003 by former Prime Minister Patterson to ensure that the infrastructure keeps up with the growth of that area. We know where it's going. The minister has said that he's going to add 20,000 new rooms over the next 5 to 10 years to the industry. What is the carrying capacity? How are we treating water, sewage, garbage disposal? It is high time that we ensure for the survival and sustainability of the industry that we make bold decisions.
Let's draw a breath here, ladies, and take a break and come right back. This is Lead Story here on CVM Television, talking about water in Western Jamaica, especially as it affects the tourism industry.
Celine Gordon, host of Holy Road.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy John Mark Wigan, host on the show Holy Road. Listen, people need to know what's happening in the churches and in ministry in all of Jamaica. It's an absolute blessing. We're really excited to share this.
Tune in to CVM, see it happen.
You know them, the movers, the shakers, the people making a difference, who never shy away from a challenge, who are never afraid to dirty their hands, to jump in and get things done, who are never afraid to fail, to take a risk, to learn. You know them and aspire to be like them. And you can, because there's always room for greatness. Apply today. University of Technology Jamaica, the birthplace of greatness.
The Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett is leading a team over there in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates to drum up more investment for the tourism industry in Jamaica. Meanwhile, back at home, it's parched conditions in Western Jamaica, especially in the Grill, where hoteliers have been under the cosh from a punishing drought since about December last year. Over $200 million spent by hoteliers since March, trucking water to their properties, leading the opposition spokesperson on tourism, Senator Janice Allen, to say, quote, "The minister's actions are negligent and a borderline dereliction of duty as the tourism interests struggle to cope." I have her online along with the former president of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, Evelyn Smith. I apologize for the bastardization of your name, Lady Evelyn. I said Evelyn, but it's from an older school. Let's go again. Lady Evelyn, the issues as we have now, I know that the NWC has prescribed a short-term fix to the issues. They've also set down a medium-term approach and a longer-term approach. They said the shorter-term approach would cost about $2 million. I have the figures here. And that the short-term measures will be implemented between April and July 2024. I ask, well, these include rapid appraisal of network with a view to plugging leaks, quick leak repairs, tank rehabilitation, procurement of new water trucks, decalcification of the Great River raw water intake pipeline, and water transfer from Great River to Green Island. He says this would have been short term between April and July this year. It's April. Have you seen any evidence of that?
Well, it's April. The minister met with us April 5, so a month ago. A leak that was at the Salt River Creek Bridge, just as you enter Negril. They have started to fix that. So that we're now 1 month into it.
Yes.
And that leak that had existed for over a year, and many of our members had called in and reported. Well, I guess there's progress in that they have now fixed it 1 month into this, but a year later. So you see, for us, what we need from a short term, and George, don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of really hardworking men and women out there in the trenches for NWC, and we thank them.
Yes.
They are out there trying their very best. But I think that from an NWC perspective, and then from a ministerial perspective, there needs to be much more focus and attention to get to the issues. Do we have, for example, the amount of manpower, technical expertise of crews down here in the Grill to fix the various leaks? Or do we have to have them come from some other part of Jamaica, such as Kingston, right? Those are the things that need to be reviewed. Do they have all of the equipment that they need to have the work done? Do they need to relook at, fittings and fixtures that they need to have on hand for that message of April to July to be truly impacted? And one of the other things that our chair had asked in the press conference is that we need to have regular progress reports. By the minister's own words, 70% of the water in Hanover goes through leaks.
Yes.
Now, we didn't know this. He told us.
Yes.
70% of the water. So, I mean, it's not hard for us to wonder. I mean, NWC knows it's 70% of the water. What have we been doing? Not me.
Yes.
What has NWC been doing to address that?
Understand the drift of the question. So, I meant to say April is gone. We're in May now. But you picked me up there. Senator Allen, the issue is the short-term measures, 1 month in, not much evidence of massive progress being made, but some work being done. NWC says that between January 25 and December 2025 and December 2027 is when some bigger scale projects are going to come on stream, including transmission upgrade between Martha Brae in Trelawney, Moe Bay, Lucy, Green Island and Negril, connecting a lot of dots there, and expanding capacity of the Martha Brae and Great River Water Treatment Plant and exploring desalination. This project, they say, will cost $186 million. So the NWC will say the project is scoped, it is costed, the plans are laid out. What more do you expect of us? That's a question they'll ask. How do you respond to that?
I say fast track it. So we're going to wait until January 2025, and that is if all goes well and all things being equal. And right now, when you listen to the hoteliers in Negril, they all tell you that they cannot go into another winter tourist season without major improvements to what currently exists. And like Evelyn said, if we don't have the sufficient expertise resident in Negril, import it from wherever it may be. This is tourism, the goose that is laying the golden egg. We cannot afford to cause it to fail. At the end of the day, 3 weeks ago, I had called for, even if you have to bring in the Army engineer, the Corps of Army engineers, wherever it must come from, if this is a priority industry, as we claim on many occasions, then let us put our money where our mouth is. Let us make sure that we act accordingly. We cannot afford for these rising bills that are being faced by not just hoteliers, but residents, workers in the industry who have to buy water.
Yes.
It is unbelievable. The NWC has a monopoly, and legislatively by law, they're required to provide water to the people, whether through pipes or through trucking. And at the end of the day, that is what needs to happen today, and for us to begin to see some real action taken. So I commend what has been done thus far. I commend all those who are involved with the process, including the TEF,
yes,
for what they have contributed to the process. We need more because the industry is at stake.
Evelyn Smith, let me ask you this. Which is the more immediate danger? Is the danger more immediate where the cancellation of bookings on the tabs already are? Is that the immediate danger? Or is it repeat business, which so many of the hotels and accommodations in Negril depend on year over year?
It's a combination. Our survey actually indicated, first of all, that the hotels have been impacted significantly from a financial perspective, right? We are going now into the slower months. Occupancy levels are lower. So any money to tide us through these months has been depleted for many or significantly reduced. We are having reports of cancellations from bookings both primarily in the winter months and later down in the year, where people who were here at the time and who knew what was going on and who would hear the water trucks and couldn't sleep in their bed at night because of the water trucks want to know if when they come back in December and January, if they're going to be able to brush their teeth. So, 1.3 billion, 1/3 of the revenue of the country, the amount of money needed, I think it's 186 million for the medium term phase. That's 18% of what Negril earned.
Generates.
For the country. And that's just tourism, the way that it's calculated. That does not include tax revenues, all of the flow through, because we know the type of tourism that is in Negril. It is very community-based. With the small hotels only purchase locally, right? There's a tremendous flow through into the economy. And the real fear is, number one, they will not be able to continue this another winter. They will fold. Can Jamaica afford to lose Negril? Can we? And it is a real fear.
Yes, yes.
You mentioned earlier on the word catastrophe. I just want to very quickly come to that. We actually asked our members, should this be considered a natural disaster? And our membership said overwhelmingly, yes, it should be, so that we can have the government go along the lines of emergency procurement.
You know, I'm happy you went there. I'm happy you went there, Evelyn. I'm happy you went there because we have to take the break shortly, but I have to squeeze this in. The emergency procurement rules dictate that for something to qualify to be treated under the emergency procurement methods or method, then it would have to be something unforeseen. Yes, as in something that risks human life and risks damage to serious damage to public property. I don't know if this could be shoehorned under that classification, but that's perhaps what the tourism interests are saying. Stay where you are, ladies. Stay where you are. We're going to take a quick break and come right back and complete this discussion. We're talking water here on Lead Story. The situation is dire in parts of Negril. Negril, of course, travels Westmoreland and Hanover, and tourism interests especially are feeling the pinch.
What's your story? What's your sign? We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive.
Welcome back to Lead Story. The Member of Parliament for Western Westmoreland, Moreland Wilson, should have joined us, but he is unable to do so. And so I'm happy to finish the program off with the two ladies that started with me, Evelyn Smith, former president of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, and Senator Janice Allen. She's the opposition spokesperson on tourism. Just before I resume, ladies, just to tell the viewers for completeness of information that the fact of the water struggles in Western Jamaica, not lost on the government. They have said that each MP in Hanover and Westmoreland has been allocated $4 million for the trucking of water this year. $7.5 million and $5 million given to, well, $7.5 million to the Hanover Municipal Corporation, $5 million to the Westmoreland Municipal Corporation. And then those plans that we spoke about, the short-term plan, which was to take effect between April and July this year, $2 million US being spent on that. The medium-term plan, $186 million US from January 2025 to December 2027, the implementation of projects in that band. And then the long-term solution, they say, will cost $108 million US, is what the NWC says. And that long-term solution will include the construction of a new well, it must be new if it's construction of a 10 million gallon per day treatment plant at Roaring River and a transmission main to Negril, and implementing of non-revenue water co-management project between January 2027 and December 30. But I'm sure both you ladies will say the plans are fine, medium-term, long-term sounds fine, but we need reprieve now, Evelyn Smith.
We need those plans to start now. Going back to the Disaster Risk Management Act, it actually defines as a cause, when they made the amendments, I think it was in 2020 or 21, it actually lists drought as one of the prompters, so to speak, right? And we really believe that that is where we should go to. We do not want anybody to go against any procurement rules. It obviously has to be properly defined as an emergency, but we think the case is there that it is an emergency. There is a threat to life. Water is essential to life. All right. And there is a threat to the viability, the financial viability of the livelihoods of people is at threat.
Well, the good thing, Evelyn Smith, is that we have a legislator with us today. Senator Allen, is that a call you would support for the situation in the Grill, beg your pardon, to be treated accordingly and for emergency procurement measures to attend to the procurement process?
Most definitely, without hesitation, because I too consider it a crisis. It is a natural disaster at this point. Lives are being impacted in so many different ways. And if we have to act, at the end of the day, we have workers in the industry, we have businesses, we have Negril generating a significant portion of what is earned by the industry or for the government out of Negril that is being generated. We have 700 or so rooms in Negril that operate in different spaces. Some are small in people's homes and large. Already, what has been committed by the government for the short and the medium term pale in comparison to what has been spent already by the players in the industry. So I expect us to treat it as a national disaster or an emergency, because it is threatening an industry and spin-offs that are significant to our overall living.
Yes.
You know, I want to point out to you, George, and to your viewers, I was in Hanover on the past weekend. And fortunately, where I was staying, a small villa, a small property, fortunately, they had a tank. But then it is typical, you have to get through the business of filling up water at night because the water goes out. And when you have a property that is being used by 7, 8 people, water is something that must be provided daily. And we cannot continue to operate like this. If we speak individually to some of the operators in Negril, the amount of money, I think they're very conservative when they're telling you what the amount that they have spent.
Yes.
It is significant, and it is impacting their future potential to continue in the business.
Yes. Evelyn Smith, in 20 seconds or less, given where we are and given the arguments that stakeholders have made, do you get the impression that the government will respond favorably to the suggestions that have been made to the solution to the problem in the short term?
Well, I would have hoped that the government would have responded to us already. All right. The membership through the JHJ and Negril and the Chamber have been requesting a meeting with the Prime Minister. To the best of my knowledge, that letter was sent off about 2 months ago. They are yet to receive an answer. Since then, we had Minister Samuda come and speak to us. Water crisis continues. We need urgent response from the government right now.
Hear you on that. Ladies, thank you for your time. All I'll say is this: given that the crisis won't get any better,